सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। So as Rohini Kumarji mentioned, I'm from the Dallas Tremendous Mission, born and raised in Dallas. So when I told them I'm coming to Illinois in November, they told me horror stories, that you're going to freeze, all of these things. So far so good, but I heard things can suddenly happen. So we'll see how this week goes. But it's great to be here at Home Samahni, a very beautiful center you have here. And for this center to come up, especially during the pandemic, with so many obstacles and challenges, for you to build this beautiful center at that time and to really grow your community here, it's a wonderful thing. And I'm so blessed and lucky to be able to meet all of you and take in this wonderful facility here. Now, for the next few days, we're going to be looking and exploring a beautiful text, Saddarśana, by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Now, when it comes to a text that's 44 shlokas long, and there's 5 days to go through those 44 shlokas, with the World Cup going on right now, the way I see it, 5 overs, 44 runs we have to hit. So the run rate has to be intimidatingly large, is what the run rate has to be. But I have no doubt we can all get through it together. Now, this beautiful text is very focused on one specific aspect of a sadhaka's journey. That is that component of vichara, inquiry. Where in Sanatana Dharma, it's not just enough to have shraddha. Faith is important. But more than that shraddha, inquiry has to be there, that intellectual buy-in, totally understanding what the scriptures doubtlessly say. Unless that component is there, growth for the sadhaka is very, very flimsy. In Texas, we have very rocky soil there. Barely any nutrient-rich soil. So all of you have basements here in your homes. None of us have basements over in Texas. We only built up. There's no way to go down there. So if we go camping, for instance, we put the tent poles in the ground, we have to put it there pretty deep to make sure it's firm, or else it's very, very flimsy. And the way you test that is get the pole in deep and push it as hard as you can. And if it does not shake even then, you know it's sturdy enough to withstand any kind of weather that may come. Now, is my conviction in what the scriptures say, is it that firm? Or is it that if someone asks me 2 or 3 questions, my conviction in what my path is also is flimsy, and I say, they're right, their objections sound pretty good. It can be as simple as, you have all these pictures of your gods, your forms of Bhagavan. Have you ever seen one in person? No. How can it be real then? That's one big punch to the face right there. That's a little bit to shake our shraddha. Then these Vedas, that is where the knowledge is contained, any derivative of that, or all the other texts that we have. Who wrote those Vedas? We say Bhagavan Sri Veda Vyasji codified them, but writing them, we say it's Apaurushaya. It was revealed to the rishis. There's no authorship there. How can you see it as valid? Now, these kinds of basic questions have shaken many a Hindu over the past few generations. So when it comes to the philosophical backing, that philosophical understanding, but also practical application, both have to be hand in hand for me to really have that conviction in what is my religion even saying. And through this Saddarśana, it's a compound word, Sat, that truth, that existence principle, Darshanam, a true understanding of that, an intimate understanding of that. Because when we look at it in English when it's written, it looks like sad Darshanam is what it looks like. Don't worry, these 5 days will be very happy and joyful. Not sad Darshanam at all, we'll be smiling the whole time. So what exactly is this Saddarśana? Let's jump right in. So if you have the text with you, you can repeat each line after me. Even if not, I'll do one pada at a time. Sat pratyaya kimnu vihaya santam. Sat pratyaya kimnu vihaya santam. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakhyah. Hridyesha chinta rahito hridakhyah. Katham smaramastamameyamekam. Katham smaramastamameyamekam. Tasya smritistatra dridhaiva nishtha. Tasya smritistatra dridhaiva nishtha. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji was famously straightforward in everything he ever said. There are beautiful poetic metaphors he presents, but at the same time, his answer to any doubt or any burning question relating to spirituality was quite uniform. Whenever anyone would come to him saying that my life is falling apart, the people in my life are giving me trouble, I don't understand what direction I should go in, my purpose is lost, I'm dealing with this problem, that problem, whatever they would come with, his one answer was like a one-size-fits-all statement. Who are you? Who is the one complaining? Who is the one that has these issues? Who is the one with these relations that are burdening him or her? Who is this entity you're even referring to? Because whether we know it or not, the word that we use the most subtly in our language is I. Even when we say the plane is flying, reading between the lines is I see that plane flying is what we're saying. So whether we verbalize it or not, I underlines every single thought, every single statement that I make. It's impossible to perceive and express without that I. So I better understand what that I is then. It really has to make sense to me to have any understanding of what this deep-rooted philosophy is. So in this first shloka we see a rhetorical question that Bhagavan starts with. Sat pratyayaha kimnu vihaya santam. That if there is no existence principle, if there is no existence, is there any chance that thoughts of existence of objects come about? Because there are numerous objects in the world. This entire creation is nothing but that objective expression. Is there something underlying all of this? There has to be. In our mission center in Dallas, recently there was what we thought was a break-in. It turned out to be some squirrel or something got into one of our rooms. When the kids leave the door open, this is what happens. For your new facility, please always keep the door closed. Especially with the wildlife you have around here, forest area. So a squirrel got into one of the rooms, pushed everything around, moved the furniture, papers everywhere, all of this. Like detectives, we're trying to figure out what exactly happened here. So we're retracing steps in there, seeing for any kind of tracks. Did someone come in and steal something? Like looking for what is missing. That's the hardest thing to do, looking for something that's missing. Going through these motions. And then one really smart Sevak said, it looks like tracks going this way. So I think some kind of animal must have come in here. Then, if I'm not wrong, there must be food behind this cabinet right here. They opened it, we saw something half opened, missing. This guy was like a savant like Sherlock Holmes, and he's going through all of this. And then after he told us everything, he says, by the way, on a security camera, I saw everything this morning. I wish he had said that before, then all this praise and impressiveness wouldn't have flowed from us, but he did it in this order. The point being, for any of these changes that took place, he was that one focal point watching that camera, seeing everything happen and recorded. One entity had to be constant to make sure it saw all other changes. Similarly, in this vast existence that we have, with all of its changes, there has to be one entity remaining the same to even view all of these changes. When your kids are growing up at home, usually around the kitchen there's a wall, and you see all these marks there, don't you? Where as they're growing up, you get a pencil or a pen, and then you put those marks. And over the years, they get higher and higher. Your children are growing. With all those changes going on, there has to be one entity, one background that's stationary, firm, capturing all of these changes. Without that capturing of the changes, there's no way to see what change is even occurring. That canvas that we have is this existence principle. Now, to know that principle is that next step. After accepting that, it does exist. But this kind of knowledge is different from any other type of knowledge. Any objective knowledge in the world, there is a knower, there's an object to be known. Whether it's understanding the tax code so that I have to pay less taxes, whether it's understanding any scientific discovery so I can take advantage of it, knower is there, what is to be known is also there. Those are always separate. The thing about this existence principle is the knower becomes the known once that principle is known. How can that be the case? Because according to Vedantic definition, Bhagavan Shri Krishna gives this clearly in the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which is existing is real. That which is not existing is unreal. Now, what is his definition of real and unreal? It's really beautiful to see. That which is real is present in all three periods of time: past, present, and future. There was no time where it did not exist. There is no time, there will be no time where it does not exist in the future. Now, our challenge is, please easily point to something that's like that. Where there was no time it didn't exist, no time it will not exist in the future. We can't point to a single thing. So, two things here. Either we cannot perceive that which is real and even think of it, or Bhagavan Krishna is wrong in his statement there. Which one are we going with here? This is the crossroads that sadhaka comes to then. Where to even perceive what this knowledge is, that leap of faith is needed, where I say, I don't know everything just through perception of my five senses. This knowledge is contained somewhere deeper. I have to trust what that knowledge is saying. Starting with this very existence. And that only comes from us. That is the entire setup for this entire text. Simply explaining what that existence principle is, and knowing this, what are the implications for me? That's what we'll explore for the next few days. Now, after this rhetorical question is asked, Bhagavan also says that in this knowledge I must have dridha nishtha eva, firm conviction in this alone, where despite any kind of objection, either externally or those that pop up in my own mind, this knowledge cannot leave me no matter what. It must firmly stay. Which begs the next question, why do I have to know this? What benefit is there from knowing what existence principle is, what my true identity is? What's the point of it? There's a beautiful proverb in Sanskritam. Kakadanta parikshanyaya. Imagine someone gets a bachelor's degree, master's, PhD, even more education, all on one specific super specialization. Their topic is Kakadanta pariksha. How many teeth does a crow have? What's the prayojana? What's the purpose of that knowledge? Unless you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and that's the $1 million question. You get that right, you get the riches. Unless that's the case, I can think of no other situation where that knowledge helps me in any way. So Vedanta takes the burden here where it says, if the scriptures say you must know something, they have to prove to me why I have to know. Or else it's a fruitless endeavor. And what we see very clearly, right from the get-go, is this strong inquiry ultimately leads to moksha, realization. That liberation where there is no more cycle of birth and death and birth and death. That's the promise that's made to me. Now, what is the result then that comes from this knowledge? Unmitigated happiness, nirankusha tripti. That unending bliss is what I'm promised from this. Where there is no other knowledge in the world, no other endeavor in this world, that promises me that. This knowledge specifically is the only thing that guarantees me this unmitigated happiness. With that promise that it's giving me, let that be my inspiration to take this seriously and study. Now, is it a long process? Yes. Does it take a huge effort? Certainly. Is it painful at times? No doubt. But is it something I have to go through if I want that liberation? 100%. And that's our very starting point. In the second shloka then, Bhagavan goes further here, bringing in one element that's very important to see. He brings up the topic of devotion at this point in the second shloka. Mrityunjayam mrityubhiyashritanam Mrityunjayam mrityubhiyashritanam Aham matir mrityumupaiti purvam Aham matir mrityumupaiti purvam Adhasvabhavat amriteshu teshu Adhasvabhavat amriteshu teshu Katham punar mrityudhiyo vakashaha Katham punar mrityudhiyo vakashaha. Don't get scared, but the word mrityu came several times in the shloka, meaning death. Death is what we fear the most. And not just the death where this body drops and no longer continues. Every moment that morphs into another moment is a microcosmic death in itself. This one span where I paused for 5 seconds, unfortunately, will never come back to you again. It will never come back. Like that, moments are dying after moments and morphing into new moments then. So death is all around us at every single point. Now the question here is, there are those who seek to get over this fear of death. That's where Bhagavan comes in. Not just in the sense of, Bhagavan, please save me, please help me. It goes deeper than that. For instance, growing up, what do our parents tell us when we go to the temple? Fold your hands, close your eyes, ask for good grades. That's our prayer. As we grow older, the prayer also evolves as we evolve. I have to pay off my debts. I have to get my children married. This person hurt me, please hurt them back. Our prayers turn to different things as we go on. But then when we do the Aarti of Bhagavan, what do we say? Bhagavan, you are Sarvajna, all-knowing. Bhagavan, you are Sarvashaktiman, all-powerful. Bhagavan, you are Antaryami, that indweller in me. But then when we ask for things in prayer, does it reflect the stutis we've given Bhagavan during Aarti? Think about it. If I say, Bhagavan, this is what I need, please grant it to me. Essentially, I'm saying, Bhagavan, you're Sarvajna, all-knowing, but you don't know what I want, so let me tell you what I want. Bhagavan, you're Sarvashaktiman, all-powerful, but still, let me bribe you by breaking 10 coconuts at your temple, and then you'll give me what I want. Bhagavan is my vyapari now, business partner. Or worse, my hitman. That someone hurt me, you go hurt them now. I'm Sarvashaktiman, all-powerful. The worst is, I say, Bhagavan, you're Antaryami, the indweller, and then for the actions that I commit, I blame you, Bhagavan, for that. You give me the spark of energy, that spark of intelligence to go and act. Instead of using that wisely, I commit mistakes, then have the audacity to blame that Bhagavan or Bhagavati and say, you're not looking out for me. So then what should we pray for then? Asking for something out of the question. That kind of business wheeling and dealing, I can't do that either. What do I even pray for? So Bhagavan Shri Adi Shankaracharya puts it beautifully in Bhakti Vritti. He says for that mature sadhaka, there are only two prayers to express to Bhagavan. First prayer is gratitude. That for giving me the opportunity to even engage in the spiritual path, thank you for that. The gratitude there. The other prayer being, Bhagavan, please give me that strength to resist the objects of the world and only follow your feet. Give me that strength. Those are the two things to ask for a mature sadhaka. Now, to get to that point, though, it takes a lot of work on my inner instrument to even get to that accepting point. But here we find Bhagavan saying that for those who wish to conquer death, they want to understand that this death is nothing but a union with something higher. Therefore, that Ishvara Arpana, that bhakti towards Bhagavan, is cultivated. But how does that reconcile with this idea of understanding existence? How does that reconcile with bhakti then? Is Bhagavan also that same existence? Meaning, in every moment that I'm existing, this I notion is what is prevalent, pumping with my heart all the time. Any thought I have, anytime I express, that I thought underlies everything. We saw that in the previous shloka. Given that that's the case, if I say I need to kill this ahankara that I have, this assemblage here, where I think I'm Brahmachari Hari Chaitanya, with this body, with this mind, with this intellect, the only way to that liberation is to cut that identity with this ahankara. This assemblage is not me, that realization has to come. Now for that to come, I must have a purified mind. For that purified mind, the only way it happens is through this worship of Bhagavan. Because the most exalted form is what I must surrender to. The most noble, highest level I can get to, that is at the feet of that Bhagavan. Where all my actions and the results are offered at Bhagavan's feet. Where any accomplishments I end up having offered there as well, so that this egocentric, desire-ridden figure that I'm so attached to does not bloat any further and is minimized through each passing day of this strong devotion. That's the very purpose of it. And we find something very beautiful in Bhagavatam. Bhagavan Mahavishnu grants that darshan to Prahladji. And he says, you may ask for anything you'd like. What does Prahladji say? He says, Bhagavan, there's nothing new that I want. But as I look around and I see the attachment to objects of the world that people have, give me that same intensity of desire, but that desire should be for you. That just as people want the objects so strongly they want it, I also want that strong fervor and desire, desiring you though. Grant me that. And Bhagavan does grant it. So it's not that devotion to Bhagavan is something new, something mystical, something totally different. It's just a change of attention and priority. That which I think about the most will come to my mind the most. When that abhyasa is done, that's how it happens. What I think about the most comes to mind the most. At our Sandipani ashram in Mumbai, where we studied, it was really strange, the setting there. Because their ashram is in the middle there. On one side, we have a 7-star hotel. Until I got to India, I didn't know they had 7-star hotels. I only knew 5-star. 7-star hotel, Renaissance Hotel. On the other side, they have the slums there. The disparity in wealth was just incredible to see. So in the 7-star hotel, they'd have these concerts sometimes. String quartets, professional singers, we could hear it from the walls. And then on the slum side, whether it was a wedding, birthday party, funeral, whatever it was, they have the same music playing, same song would play, electric keyboard, every single time. What's that one song? Mere angane mein tumhara kya kaam hai? That would play every single time. Every time. Right as we're trying to go to bed 10, 11 at night, to wake up early the next morning, all of us brahmacharis, that's when that music would play. Now, abhyasa. Hearing something again and again pounded into your head makes a difference. Because when you wake up in the morning, Brahma Muhurta, early in the morning, you want some Shubha Vichara to be in your mind. Some good, decent, healthy, productive, divine thought to start the day with. Jai Shri Krishna, Om Shri Saraswati Namaha, something like that. Instead, we wake up in the morning, what's the first thought? Jiski bibi lambi uska hi bada naam hai. Abhyasa done again and again will produce that effect. Where my focus lies, where my attention lies, the stimuli coming to me, that will create an indelible impression in my mind. And if that's of a sattvic nature, of that Bhagavad Bhakti, Ishvara Upasana, then I rise with that. There's no way I can't. So, that I notion is what must die first in this quest. Ishvara Upasana facilitates that quest in a wonderful way. Now looking at the third shloka, what do we come to? So we've seen, what is Saddarśana? How do I gain it is our entire roadmap coming up. We've seen what role does devotion play in this entire process. Now we come to the third shloka, where how is this Saddarśana achieved through cause and effect? What angle does cause and effect play in our understanding here? Let's chant. Sarvair nidanam jagato hamascha. Sarvair nidanam jagato hamascha. Vachyaf prabhukaschid apara shakti. Vachyaf prabhukaschid apara shakti. Chitre tralokyam cha vilokita cha. Chitre tralokyam cha vilokita cha. Pataf prakasho pyabhavat sa ekaha. Pataf Bhagavan. Cause and effect is a very funny thing. For some things, we see the cause and the effect very clearly. You see a toddler silent for more than 10 minutes, that's a dead giveaway, they're up to no good. Whether Bhagavan Krishna or your little Krishna, it's the same thing. You go into your bathroom, what do you find? Toothpaste all over the floor, toothpaste all over the kid's face, the tube firmly in his hand. What does that mean? You know what that means. Cause, you left it too low somewhere. Effect is very clear there for you, and what you have to do to clean that up, you also know. Cause and effect is very clear. Now, there are some causes and effects that need some more explanation, then, of why things are the way they are. One of the greatest athletes in history, definitely of the past 20, 30 years, is a man named Deion Sanders. He played professional baseball and professional football in his career. First man to ever score a home run and a touchdown the same week. Incredible. And in football, he played offense and defense. So he was a very gifted athlete. Now, while he was playing, though, even though he wore a football helmet or a baseball cap, he would get his hair done with a perm kind of thing every single week, no matter what. He'd wear earrings while he would play the sport. People asked him, why do you do this? Why do you get a fresh haircut that's only covered by your helmet every week? Why these earrings? Why do you wear gold chains when you play? What's up with all this? No one else does that. He said, it makes me play better. People were surprised. Why? Why does that make you play better? He gave a very simple explanation. He said, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, you win. That was his clear explanation. Can't argue with that logic, can you? So some causes and effects are very clear to us. Some are more subjective, where we don't understand them. But for the person that makes the claim, they see that it works. Now, when it comes to cause and effect, this is a wonderful angle to understand what is this Saddarśana, how is it achieved? Because if there is anything that I find I can cognize and perceive, it is an effect. Anything that is an effect is the result of some type of karma. Anything that is the result of some karma is finite, has no permanence to it. And as we saw previously, if something has no permanence, has an expiration date, is it real or unreal? Completely unreal. No chance of it being real. Now, given that this entire creation we find ourselves in naturally is unreal, it's a product of karma. You, me, the camera, everything is a product of karma, with a date of birth, a certain date of death as well. Now, when it comes to karma has four functions to it. Apyam, prapyam, vikaryam, samskaryam. Apyam. Karma can create something. Modifying what is there, putting it together, it can create something. Prapyam. Karma can procure something that I already don't have. Creating something, procuring something. Vikaryam. Karma can modify something, evolve it, make it go through some kind of change. Finally, samskaryam. Karma can purify something. Now, the only real entity is this existence principle. Can karma create existence? No way. Not with these four markers we've just presented, there's no way karma can create that existence. Therefore, anything that's a product of karma is unreal, is certainly an effect. So that cause has to be something permanent that it comes from. That cause must verily be that existence principle. So we see cause is there, we see effect is clearly there. Now, let's back up a little bit here. We're admitting there's a cause. We're admitting all of this creation is an effect. Let's inquire a bit further here. Say that there is a clay pot that you have with you. Clay made of mud or clay, some substance like that. This is an effect. And if it's a clay pot, the cause of it is clay. Okay, the substance is clay. From that, the pot is made. Cause, effect. An effect is something that is only an effect if it's completely different from the cause. Is the clay pot completely different from the clay? Meaning, if you remove the clay from the clay pot, what remains? Nothing. So how are we saying it's different from the clay then? So it's not different from the clay. Cause, effect, we're just naming it that way. So effect is gone. Clay is clay still. Only the cause remains. Without an effect, can you label a cause as a cause? You can never call Brahmachari or Sannyasi a father. The effect has to be there to say that this is the cause as a father. Therefore, that pot losing the label of effect, that clay also loses that label of cause. Therefore, even in this creation, which is simply that which is unreal, it's nothing different from the cause. Now, there's one objection that can come here. So we're invalidating cause and effect here, but there's one objection that makes this existence different from the clay in the pot. That objection is, well, if creation is just a modification of what that original cause is, does that mean this existence principle is being modified then to make creation? Can that be tenable? Because if we say existence is being modified, that ceases to be real at that point because it's changing. So what's the only solution we have here in the cause and effect argument when it comes to existence? It's got to be the same. If it was the same, though, this entire creation would always have to persist and be real. It would have no end to it. Yet we see this so-called effect in the world changing all the time. There is an end to it then. What's the solution? It has to be that this effect of creation must be unreal, only an illusion then. That it has no change that existence is going through. This is simply an illusion, is what we have to come to. Now, this is how every single shloka will be. Where we'll have a framework of thinking, whether it's cause and effect, whether it's the 5 sheets of the body, whether it's sleeping, waking, deep sleep, we'll look at different frameworks of thinking. By the end of that vichara, in the few minutes that we do it, the conclusion we come to is all roads lead back to that existence. Now, this will shake us at our foundation. This world we think is permanent and we're interacting with day in and day out, unreal. This assemblage with the accomplishments of the intellect, the emotions of the mind, the strength of the body, unreal, has no valid substratum to it. This is what will happen every single time. Now that shakes our conviction. It doesn't go with what we want to believe, but that is the diligence that this kind of vichara requires then. So what do we see from this whole cause and effect example that's given? Let's introduce 3 entities here now. We've talked about these 3 entities, haven't labeled them yet. Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. All 3 of these. Anything in our interaction, anything we can cognize in this mind, boils down to one of these 3 things. Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. Jiva is this assembly that I think I am. Not just in this life, but this little bundle of vasanas, impressions that has gone through janma after janma, that is the jiva. Jagat is the supposed outer creation that I'm interacting with on a daily basis. Srishti, creation, Jagat, the world. Ishvara is the one in tandem with that Maya, wields that Maya and controls this entire circus we call the Jiva and the Jagat. An outlet to express my vasanas is this Jagat, controlled by that Ishvara. And the karmas that this Jiva does, the karma paladata, the one who gives the results of those actions, is none other than that Ishvara. That's the framework that we have set for us. Now, with this cause and effect argument, how does that help us understand the relation between Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara? Through cause and effect, what we understand is Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara are nothing but the same. Not even same, that's even a compromise statement. If you say same, you're saying there are different entities and they have the exact same lakshanas qualities. We're going one step further. There is one and only. We see it expressed as three distinct entities of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. So when there is only one entity, but expressed in three different ways, can we even say that's a cause or effect at all? We can't. Because even in Puranas, what we see is Ishvara birthed this entire creation. That is true at one level, where we accept that this illusory creation has some realness to it. When we accept it that way, we understand it that way. But in essence, when we see this is unreal, the only existing thing is that existence principle, Jiva equals Jagat equals Ishvara. There are no distinctions we can make there. So the conclusion of the cause and effect analysis is there is no cause and effect there. Or there is no effect, which means there is no cause. Are we all on the same page so far? Good so far? Everyone awake so far? Let's have some fun now. Now it's time to have some fun. Now that we've got some things out of the way here, now we have fun. Where we come to the fourth shloka now. Arabhyate jiva jagat paratma. Arabhyate jiva jagat paratma. Tattva bibhidhane namatam samastam. Tattva bibhidhane namatam samastam. Idam trayam yavadaham matisyat. Idam trayam yavadaham matisyat. Sarvottamaham matishunya nishtha. Sarvottamaham matishunya nishtha. So then we've clearly seen that there are no differences between this Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. Yet the objection is, we perceive nothing but differences. We see that we are these limited Jivas, functioning in this Jagat that doesn't do what we want it to do, ever. And then there is some Ishvara who gives me the palas of what karma I do, and he's remote, I don't even know, I've never perceived him at all. That's the game I'm thrown into. And then Shastra says there's no differences. How do I reconcile both of these things? There's got to be some way to make sense of it there. Where that means this vichara requires that diligence, complete diligence, where I go through this intellectual exercise again and again and again. What's the statement that Bhagavan makes here? Arabhyate jiva jagat paratma. That any time there is a philosophy in the world, it has to contain these three components in it. Any valid philosophy. What is the view on Jiva? What is the view on Jagat? What is that view on Ishvara, Paratma? Now, does every philosophy go into this though? Take materialism, for example. The kids, what they say, YOLO, you only live once, that is pure pure materialism, where there is no accountability, because there is no next Janma, no previous Janma. This is it. Chai piyo, manja karo, enjoy your life. That's all you gotta do. If there's nothing else to look forward to, nothing else done previously, what else do you have to worry about? Now, this materialistic philosophy, if we look at any lifestyle, it's predicated on a philosophy, isn't it? As Advaita Vedantins, we subscribe to that philosophy. Our lifestyle of sadhana, of how we conduct ourselves, of how we see other beings, all of this is in line with that specific philosophy. A lifestyle was birthed from that origin of philosophy. Now, when it comes to materialism, of going after objects, enjoying the world in that way, did any of us have to read a book on it before we started doing them? Textbook, grade 1. Following your desires feels good. You should go and get objects that make you happy. Then we said, I'm going to live this lifestyle. Does that happen? If anything, the lifestyle that's predicated on my innate desires, I've come up with a philosophy to validate that, haven't I? That's the order it's gone in. So when Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says all philosophies begin with this convention of Jiva Jagat Ishvara, he's talking about mature philosophies that have Veda as their basis. Even within darshanas that take the Vedas as their pramana, valid means of knowledge, there are so many differences there. He's not even going to these other immature philosophies that don't even come to this level. So right away, this vichara, you see the level that's starting at right here. That's what the Acharya is expecting of us. Now let's take it one step further. In this discussion of different philosophies, the question often comes up, there are so many religions out there, where aren't they all, at the end of the day, pointing to the same thing? You've heard that statement before. We have different names for that supreme. I call him Krishna, you call him Jesus, she calls him Allah. The same. At the end of the day, though, all these scriptures are pointing to that same thing. It's all the same. To say that sounds very fuzzy and beautiful and cute and gives us warm feelings. Is that actually true, though? Let's analyze. Someone once asked Uji Gurudev, and the question was very simple. Is Hinduism a religion or a way of life? What was their simple question? Is Hinduism a religion or is it a way of life? And Gurudev gave a very elaborate answer to this. He started by saying, let's see why this question even comes about. Who were one of the first foreign scholars to study our Shastras outside of Bharatavarsha? To actually study them by learning the Sanskrit language, going through, translating, analyzing? The Germans. Or if you go to some German libraries today in the universities, they have more of our literature, certain texts that we haven't even kept up in Bhagavad. They studied it quite intensely. So they learn the language first to understand the vocabulary and context of what Sanatana Dharma Shastra is saying. Now, they found one word called mata, and they translated that word as religion. Why? Because they saw Christo mata, which is Christianity. Muhammadiya mata, Islam. Bauddha mata, Buddhism. They saw it like that. So they naturally said, this means religion. Then they came to the Bharatiya religion, what they see there. Shankara mata, Ramanuja mata, Madhva mata. So what was their conclusion there? That the Sanatana Dharma is not one unified religion, it's a bunch of different religions. So Sanatana Dharma is a way of life, not a religion. Gurudev explains this whole process of why the doubt even comes about. Then he asks a rhetorical question. Can there be a way of life without some kind of philosophical backing? There can. Or else why are we doing anything if there's no philosophy that's either validating it or this lifestyle comes from the philosophy? Has to be there. can there be any valid philosophy or religion that has no way of life associated with it? That can't be possible either. Or else there's no practicality of it. So he said the question is inherently flawed of asking, is Hinduism a religion or a philosophy? There can be no religion without a way of life. There can be no way of life without being predicated on philosophy, religion. But then he takes it one step further. He says, let me define religion. A religion can only be called a religion if it's a philosophy that is based on irrefutable fundamental principles. That's what he says. A religion can only be called a religion if it's based on a philosophy that has irrefutable fundamental principles. So by that logic, let's take it one step further than he took it to. Sanatana Dharma, the culmination of the Upanishads, Vedanta, tells me loudly and clearly my true identity is Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, that existence principle. Chit, consciousness principle. Ananda, unmitigated bliss, is what I am. Not even what I have, that is my true identity. This is proved through logic. This is proved through seeing it in Shruti Mata, all of these ways. It's not an opinion of anyone. Now look at any Abrahamic religion. Christianity, opinion of Christ. That's why it's called Christo Mata. Mata means opinion. Islam is the view of one prophet, of that Muhammad. Therefore, Muhammadiyya Mata is what it's called. So Mata means opinion. Shankara Mata, Ramanuja Mata, Madhva Mata, these are simply opinions based on those Vedic facts. So in essence, Gurudev ends with this sixer. He says, based on this definition of religion, what is the only religion in the world then? Sanatana Dharma. Now, to say this out loud outside the confines of here would be controversial. But when it comes to our philosophical fine-tuned understanding of what this existence principle is, do you see why we have to stick to this definition right here? That this is not an opinion, that can't be my conviction. This is an irrefutable fact. And anything proclaimed in Sanatana Dharma in the scriptures, it doesn't say accept it just because it's here in the scriptures. It says this has to pass a three-way test for you to accept as true. What's that three-way test? Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Shruti meaning, is it validated by what the Veda says? We'll go into this later in a few days, but Veda is that highest Brahmana, meaning valid means of knowledge. Is it validated by what the Veda says? Yukti, logic. Does it logically make sense to me? Where I can go through Tarka, the Indian logical system, does it make sense? Anubhuti, is it my personal, intimate experience? If this knowledge is not past this three-way test, I cannot consider it as true. That's what makes it an irrefutable, fundamental principle that our entire religion is based on. That's the beauty of it. So it looks like quite a benign question that's asked in the shloka, or stated here. That every philosophy begins with this Jiva Jagat Ishvara, but that's for a reason. Also in the shloka we find that how do these three things persist? Jiva Jagat Ishvara. They persist as long as this I notion is there. This notion that the jiva is the I, that makes Ishvara persist how? Because as a jiva, there's something that has to give me phalas of my karma. Ishvara has to be there. When I say I am the jiva, there has to be an arena for me to express my vasanas, therefore Jagat has to be there. So because I consider myself as this jiva, these other two entities, Ishvara and Jagat, must persist, must be sustained for that reason. So another clear thing we find in this shloka. Now I know I'm moving quickly, and we will recap things, but to get through the entire text in 5 days, we have to move at the speed. So I apologize for that. If it seems overwhelming in some ways, some of your faces look pained, like, oh my god, he's going too fast. We'll come back to all the topics. I promise you that. Do not be overwhelmed, okay? We will come back to these things. So, for the fourth shloka, we clearly find that these three entities are there and only persist because I clearly have this I notion within. Now we come to this fifth shloka. Satyam rishavaachididam jadam va. Satyam rishavaachididam jadam va. Dukkham sukham veti mudha vivadaha. Dukkham sukham veti mudha vivadaha. Adrishtalokāniraham pratitihi. Adrishtalokāniraham pratitihi. Nishtha vikalpa paramakhileshta. Nishtha vikalpa paramakhileshta. This is a fun one. It goes into arguments. What is that logic to be presented to understand what Sat is, this existence principle? Now, what's something funny we notice in our mission? We try to have study groups, whether it's for adults, the high school students, the college-age chick members. We have different study groups. And in facilitating this, there are some funny patterns that we find. For example, whether it's a high school kid or a university student, you ask them any question to analyze, the first example they use is the example of a test. We'll say vasanas. Let's talk about vasanas. Give me an example of vasanas. I have a tendency, I don't like to study for tests. I wait till the last minute, and then I study at night. If I study well, I do well on the exam. If I don't do well. Vasanas, test. Okay. Let's talk about Karma Siddhanta, principle of karma. Whatever you do, the karma phala comes back to you. I have to take a test. I studied hard for it. Then I did well. Karma phala was good. My friend, idiot, did not study well for the test. He did bad. Then karma phala was bad. Talk about intelligence. What is that spark of consciousness in a person? On a test one time, my intelligence was low. I felt dull. I didn't answer well. That means the spark was lower. These kinds of things. Answer the same answer. Now, you're all laughing. You won't be laughing in a second. Because when we do adult study groups, you see where I know. What happens in those situations? Any question you ask, it goes to my wife, my husband, my kids. Tell me I'm wrong. Here you talk about, okay, what about that Maya Shakti we find in this Jagat? The Ishvara that wields that Maya Shakti. Maya Shakti is so strong where, sometimes I think I love my kids, other times the way they behave, sometimes I'm even deluded by that potency. I don't think they're upstanding people at all. Okay. Let's talk about the 5 sheets then, the different layers in a personality. When my husband is there, on the Maya Gosha, the body level, he seems so dull, jada all the time. Then that subtle layer that we go into, his tendencies are always negative, nothing positive is there. That vasana that is there even before then, he's born to the family he's born into because of his vasanas, that's why the mother-in-law raised him that way. This is how it goes. Every study group discussion goes back to my wife, my husband, my kids. We can't blame ourselves for that though, can we? If we are to go into Vichara, we have to start at the point that we are. It's not that we go to lofty heights and then start thinking. Wherever we are with whatever experiences are in our orbit, that's where we start to go into Vichara. You go into any shopping mall, you'll find periodically in all these different places, you find the map of the entire mall. They'll show you H&M is over here, Aeropostale's over here, Radio Shack's over there, all of these different stores. What is the most important part of that map, though? That red dot that says you are here. Without knowing that, all the stores can be listed. Does that help me in any way if I don't know where I am? That you are here is the most important part. Meaning in this vichara that we're doing in Saddarśana, that you are here has to be clearly understood. Where is my pain point? Is it that it's at the body level, where my appearance, the way I look, the way I appear to others, that is a pain point for me? What vichara will be there at that point? Is it that at the mind level, emotionally, I can't find stability? Where someone else's comments or perceived judgment from others has me going happy, sad. That's also there. Or is it intellectually where my pain point is? That I believe that, okay, at the body level, at a certain age, no one looks pretty at that age, I accept that, so I say, okay, that doesn't matter to me. Emotionally, I say everyone has feelings, that doesn't matter to me either. But the decisions that I make, are they accepted by the people? That really matters to me. And if someone rejects my decisions, I see it as a rejection of me entirely. So what are my various pain points that I have? Now, how does this relate to Saddarśana then? That existence principle? What layer am I at saying this is me? What am I saying is my existence? Is it at the most tamasic level of saying that this body, all its changes, that is me? Is it more subtle than that? Saying this inner personality is what I consider to be myself. What is the argument that I'm trying to make here? But at the same time, whichever argument I make, if it's only in the world of duality, that's where I'll stop. I won't have any growth from that point onwards. If I don't look deeper to another source as the valid means of knowledge. There was one city that wanted to test which law enforcement agency is the most intelligent. So they got 3 different departments. They got the FBI, they got the CIA, they got the LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. They had a challenge for the 3 of them. They said in a dense forest, they released a rabbit into a dense forest, and they said the department that takes the least amount of time to go in and find the rabbit, they win, is what they said. So they released the rabbit. The first agency to go in was the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. They conducted field tests. They interviewed the other animals. They interviewed the trees. They submitted a 300-page report after 2 weeks that concluded the rabbits did not exist. That was their conclusion. 2 weeks. Impressive, right? 2 weeks to figure that out. After interviewing trees and everything. Really smart. FBI went in next. They said, we don't believe in all this surveying and everything. That took too long. They said, we're have a plan of action. Because the point is to find the rabbit. We'll set the whole forest on fire. The rabbit will feel the heat. The rabbit will jump out of the forest. We'll catch that rabbit. Good plan. So in 2 hours, they did that. The poor rabbit died in the fire. They never got it, but 2 hours. So they also failed. LAPD figured this thing out, not in 2 weeks, not in 2 hours. 20 minutes they figured this out. What did they do? They went inside. There was a bear that they caught, and they're beating the bear with a stick. And the bear is yelling, okay, I'm a rabbit, okay. They found the rabbit. They're the most efficient ones then. When it comes to a valid means of knowledge, is it that I'm literally barking up the wrong tree, trying to find what the truth is in the wrong sources? Is that my approach? Is it that without any inquiry, I'm completely action-oriented? There are people that think and then they act. There are people that act and then they think. And then there's the real Mahatmas who there is no thinking, there's only action. Is that my way of figuring out the world? Or do I find something false and say this is what reality is and beat that into submission then? What is my way of doing things? Because in our Sanatana Dharma, there is this idea of Pramana, valid means of knowledge. When it comes to the perceptive world, the instruments I use for means of knowledge are my five senses: sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. Now, if you were to ask me, Huddy, is it dark outside? And I say, let me let you know. And I do that. You would think I'm crazy. Sight is what's used. Each of these five senses has a specific department it functions in to get information. It perceives objects very specifically, each of these five senses. They don't step on each other's toes. It's not like one day the eyes say, I want to smell today, only the nose gets to smell all the time. The eyes start smelling, that doesn't happen. They stick to their lanes, they're very specific. Now, with this perceptive knowledge through the five senses, if I were to say to you, that lamp is cold, would you consult a book to tell me that it's cold? You would take my hand and put it near it. When I shout and I go, ah, and then you say, yeah, now you know it's hot. Perception is all you need to know perceptive things. That's it. One more stage more subtle than that. This is called pratyaksha pramana, perceptive knowledge. One other pramana, anumana pramana. This is inference. Sam, I was surprised that I was hoping I'd see hills and mountains here in Illinois. Like in Texas, it's completely flat. You can see 200 miles right in front of you. But here, so far, I've seen flat land also. Maybe I'll see some hills sometime this week. But say you're driving by a hill, and you see smoke billowing from the other side. What can you infer? There's a fire over there. Are you seeing that fire? No. But every other experience that you've been in, whenever there is smoke, yatra yatra dhuma, tatra tatra agni, there's always been a fire there. Therefore, there's smoke coming out, there must be a fire. You make that intelligent inference then. Going off of previous pratyaksha, previous perceptive knowledge, you make an inference. Now when it comes to this knowledge of what my true identity is as this existence principle, can I know it through perceptive knowledge? No. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm perceiving through these objects here, it's only the objects of the world. These are temporary and faulty. Perception will be faulty as well. I can't see existence. Can I know it through inference? No way to know it through inference either. So where is the true, valid source of knowledge when it comes to what this identity of mine is? Only what we call Shabda Pramana, verbal testimony coming from the Shastras. That's the only place. So why am I bringing this part up? Because if someone says in the heights of intelligence that I believe there is some higher power, I believe in that divine, but I don't believe in all this Veda mumbo jumbo in there in the Sanskritam, it's just a personal experience that I believe in, can we take that as valid? Because what this principle is, what my identity is, what are obstacles keeping me from realizing it? What is the process to realize it? All of this is doubtlessly given in the scripture. There is no other place where I find this knowledge. Therefore, that is the only valid means of knowledge then. So arguments here. We find here, Satyam Vrishava Chididam Jadam Va. That when it comes to real or false, sentient or inert, dukkham, sukham, sorrow or joy, all of these have to do with the changing world. So the deeper I go into this changing world right here, how does it benefit me then? It has no benefit. If you want to point, say you're at a gathering with a lot of Indian people. A lot of Indian people are there. I say, point me out this person. Another Mr. Ra. Point me out, where's Mr. Ra? I haven't seen him, I know his name, where is he? Oh, he's the bald one. There are 20 bald men standing there. Oh, he's the one with the glasses. There are 15 bald men with glasses there. And they're getting impatient, trying to explain this to you. He's the bald one with the glasses who's brown-skinned. Thanks. We've given lakshana after lakshana, explaining more and more. Have we pointed out what the truth of what we want to know is? Not at all. So similarly like that, when my arguments delve into, when I'm talking about what's real and unreal, I talk about sorrow and joy, that thing which is moving and unmoving, I'm still working in that world of plurality. I'm not getting any closer to the truth. And if I dismiss Shastra on that quest, definitely I'm not getting to that truth. So yes, examples when we do vichara will come from exams or wife, husband, kids. That will be our starting point. But there has to be some point I look more subtly then. That it has to go deeper, using scripture as my vehicle, to understand what this existence principle even is. That has to be there rarely. There's no way around that. Or else, what happens? I think I'm doing such great vichara, thinking, but it's on a hamster wheel. I keep going around and around, confusing myself, confusing others. That's what Vedanta is, by the way. When you confuse yourself, confuse others, that's Vedanta. And you go through that wheel, and you're going nowhere, though. That's where I find myself eventually. And when discussing these kinds of matters, if we go by, I know what the scripture says, but I personally think this is beyond my perception. What I feel, I think is in the world of my own perception. This is far beyond that. Those arguments that start that way are not valid then. Well, this is given in Viveka Chudamani as bhuktaye nadumuktaye. That these kinds of arguments and wonderings, yeah, they feel good. You feel like you're being productive. Bhuktam is there. But that mukti, that liberation, that never comes from any of this. So the nature of arguments should be understanding where this I notion even comes from, not about all the other external happenings that are always changing. Now we come to the sixth shloka. Sarupa buddhir jagatishvare cha Sarupa buddhir jagatishvare cha Sarupa dhiratmaniya vadasti Sarupa dhiratmaniya vadasti Arupa atma yadikaf prabhashyet Arupa atma yadikaf prabhashyet Sadrishtireka navadhir hi purna Sadrishtireka navadhir hi purna. The question asked here is, so Bhagavan said that Jiva equals Jagat equals Ishvara. There's no cause or effect there. So if this I notion is gone then, I see myself as only existence, no attributes. And if Jiva equals Ishvara, doesn't that mean Ishvara has no attributes either? Isn't that a logical doubt that can come up right here at this point? Then does that mean this is false? All the photos we have in forms of Bhagavan are false? That's what it has to mean then. But then going to our previous part of the argument, Jagat and Ishvara persist the way they do because this I notion, me thinking that I is this Jiva, because that persists, they persist. So as long as I believe I have this form as a Jiva, for the way the Jiva has to purify my mind is through that worship of that Ishvara. It's the only way. So as long as I think I'm this Jiva with a form, that Ishvara also has that form. And Hanumanji explains this so beautifully. He says to Bhagavan Ramachandraji, Deha buddhya tudasoham, jiva buddhya tvadamshakaha. That if I'm considering myself as this Vanara Hanuman, then Bhagavan, I am your dasa, you are my master. I am a part of you. I am seeing myself as existent. I am a part of you. But then he goes on to say, Atma buddhya tvamevaham iti me nishchitamatihi. But from that standpoint of the pure self, that principle that is without any conditionings, there is only one, there is no you or I. Now, why did I bring this specific example then? When it comes to those who bash this non-dual philosophy of Advaita, they say we are arrogant when we claim that I am Ishvara. That's a very arrogant claim to make. Hanumanji himself, who can we find a better dasana bhakta? Hanumanji himself is saying that is very relative based on the standpoint that we are in. And so that's what the shloka is pointing at here. That as long as I think I have a form, that Ishvara also has a form then. It matters from my perspective. I had a friend who, for many years, the past decade really, works in the healthcare industry. Her job is specifically, when Obamacare was passed in 2012, 2009, Affordable Care Act, the whole bill is like this big. Wading through that, explaining what the bill means to her healthcare company is her one job. And how they make rules at her company based on this new law. So I said to her, wouldn't it be awesome if the bills that our country passes, if they were only this big, with all that Sarkari Bhasha, if they just were straightforward about what they were saying, wouldn't that be so much better? She said, no. I said, why not? I'd lose my job. My job would not exist at that point then. I have a job because the government is awful and makes these complicated laws. If that were not the case, I wouldn't have a job. Why are you saying that? So like that, there is some standpoints out there. A refusal to believe that Jiva is essentially Ishvara, because I enjoy that worship of that Bhagavan so much, I want to stay as that dasa, I don't want to come to that understanding. Now, if philosophy has to be understood, like we said, through Shruti, what the scripture says, through Yukti, logic, through Anubhuti, that personal experience, is there any scope there for, I want to remain where I am, I'm comfortable, therefore I don't want to know further? No space for that. To relate to these high school and college kids, I go to different websites like BuzzFeed.com, these places that they go to understand how are they thinking. Okay? It's part of the job I have to do. Before, whatever music or movies these high school kids watched, I was doing the same thing because of my age. Now, at the age of 30, it's like I'm 10 generations behind them. And TikTok was created when I was in the Mumbai ashram. So I didn't know what that was. I came back, I said, what is this TikTok? They looked at me like I was an alien. You don't know TikTok? You don't know TikTok? So then they showed it to me. Crash course. I did Guru Basakti, some 9th grade, 15-year-old girl, showed me how TikTok works. And then I asked her one very profound question. Cool, but what is the point of this? She couldn't answer that question. Any other thing about TikTok she could answer, how to upload, how to navigate, how to make friends, all of this. What is the point of this, though? She couldn't answer me. That's beside the point. But I go on these different websites then to understand what are these kids looking at. On BuzzFeed.com, I found an interesting article. 25 ways to get out of your comfort zone was the article. 25 ways to get out of your comfort zone. What did it list? Move to a country where you don't speak the language. Okay. Change your career to a path that you have no experience in. Like, so far, these look like ways to be poor. Like, I don't find any valuable getting out of your comfort zone here. Another was try a cuisine you've never tried before. Talk to one stranger a day and try to make friends. All these different ones. Some of them valid, some of them were just absurd. But one thing I thought was, after reading this whole thing, as long as I consider myself to be this body, this mind, this intellect, am I ever really out of my comfort zone? Whatever obstacle comes that I have to tackle, whatever new challenge awaits me, what other disputes I have in my life, one thing that's never changed is I consider this to be me. Whether I take it for granted or I understand that as I'm going through, that's one thing that's remained constant. Imagine if that understanding were also gone, how uncomfortable I'd be. That's really being out of my comfort zone. We're in Vivekachudamani, for instance, and we'll go into the 5 layers of the body soon, where there is the Annamaya Kosha, food layer. That which is subsisting on food, that's how this gross body stays alive. The Guru tells the student that is temporary, where if you don't eat, you will perish. He gives that logic. For instance, how long can you go without eating before you perish? Anyone know? 16 to 18 days. For a healthy individual, 16 to 18 days. How long can you go without water before you die? Without a drop of water. 6 to 7 days, I think. That's what they say. Doctor, am I right? 6 to 7 days. I don't like when doctors are here because they know more than me about these things, so they can call me out. 6 to 7 days. Without oxygen, before brain damage sets in, how long can you go? 3 minutes, right, is accepted before brain damage starts, somewhere around there. Without Wi-Fi, how long can a human live? 30 seconds before they die. Don't try it, okay? It's risky. From what I hear, 30 seconds and the body just drops dead. That's what the high school kids tell me, at least. So, 16 days or so without food. Therefore, the Guru says, you are not that. It's not permanent. Okay, then I must be the Manomaya Kosha. Pranamaya Kosha, invalidated. Manomaya Kosha, this mental layer. When emotions change on a dime like this, how the flow of thoughts of the mind, how can you say that's something permanent? You are not that either. Vijnanamaya Kosha, intellect, that is what I am. Your intellect takes the shape of every thought that comes and goes, has an expiration date to it, cannot be you. Then finally, the Anandamaya Kosha, what's called the bliss sheep, the storehouse of all my vasanas, those impressions that have been accumulated and compounded janma after janma, that must be me then. Not even that. Because that is also a product of karma. Anything that's a product of karma cannot be real and permanent. That's not you either. Now, when you and I go through Vivekachudamani and you read this, it's an intellectual understanding. Okay, cool. This Shishya believes what the Guru says so strongly, he cries out in anguish. That Guru, all I see now is darkness. Every layer that you've pointed out, I've gone through janmas thinking this is me. I've operated through it, that notion, this entire time. Now you're completely bending my mind. None of this is me. All I see is nothingness. That's when the Guru introduces that concept of a substratum, saying it's not just nothingness. It is Sat, that existence principle, consciousness, Chit, Ananda, that unmitigated bliss, that's what you really are. At that point, he provides that. So in this journey of vichara that we go through, Vedanta is not essentially a process of self-development. In the beginning stages, it's what? A process of self-destruction, if anything. That this self I think I am must be dissolved completely, then I understand what I really am. That's the process our texts take us through. So if there's one takeaway that we wrap up with today, it is that for there to be understanding of what I really am, for that Saddarśana to actually take place, What I am not has to be pinpointed, ruthlessly negated is that first step. And that's what we found today in our exploration of the first 6 shlokas. So with that, we'll end for the evening. Let's chant the closing prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha